that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 306th episode, edition, whatever you want to call it, of
306?
306.
This thing says 396.
Well, I don't know why it would
It's
do
wrong.
that, but it is 306. 396 is wrong. We started in November of what, 2013. So we've got more than 5 years behind us. I go to the internet and look up news on energy and climate change on a daily basis, and when I find articles that I think are worth taking note of, I do a 50 word or so synopsis, add a link to it to the original article, collect 10 to 15 of these together, and it comes out to be usually 15. And I put those up at a blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. You can go there and find the stuff that Tom and I are talking about. It's all taken from there. And today, being the 28th of February, we are starting on the 21st of February, a week ago.
Okay, and obviously I read these things so,
Yep.
so that I can talk about them a little
Yeah.
bit. And some of these things are well worth reading.
Yeah.
Some pursuing.
Yeah.
I'll try and remind you of some of the better ones.
Yes.
You know, we could devote a whole show
Yeah.
to some single one of these things, but we don't have the time.
Yep.
But we'll start this one with California.
in California,
We
and
got
we
a
have a
picture of
picture of
San Francisco.
San Francisco. My mother lived in San Francisco and during the Second World War. My parents lived in Honolulu at the beginning of the war.
Yeah, you've told me that.
And-
Your
and
father was in the Navy.
He was in the
Yeah,
Navy. He was stationed on a
the destroyer.
destroyer, and when the bombing happened, they actually heard the bombing and decided that it was nothing and went back to bed.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yep.
Well, there is a picture of San Francisco.
There is a picture.
A nice sunset picture of it.
And we have an article here from the Natural Resources Defense Council.
That's funny. My notes don't even say that, and they should, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
California puts buildings in energy policy spotlight.
California Energy Commission's latest policy report puts reducing the climate and air pollution from buildings front and center for the first time, representing a bold and necessary shift in energy priorities. This follows earlier introductions of aggressive policies. So this isn't the beginning, this is more like stepping things up in the middle.
It's doing that. It's doing that, and I'm wondering why I don't have any notes about that.
Well, I can tell you, you know, that cities in California, some of them have actually got to the point where through the local organizations that they have, zoning board and so forth, they have made it mandatory that people have solar power on their...
I had notes of saying exactly that. They're just not on my thumb drive here. I don't know why.
That's all right. You know,
I don't know why, but let's move on.
Let's move along, yes. Our next item is from Clean Technica.
U.S. could achieve 3 times as much CO2 savings with renewables instead of nuclear for less money.
Nuclear makes little sense economically or environmentally. It means that gas and coal are not being used, but we can go further and faster with wind and solar. There is no rational explanation for any substantive investment in nuclear power.
Well, you know, as that statement is written, it's true.
Yeah.
But I have a question. Why have we not changed the way we utilize nuclear power for the last 60 years?
You mean, why don't we have newer technology?
Sure.
Well,
I mean, there is newer technology
There
out
is newer technology, but we really haven't built very much nuclear since 3 Mile Island, and what we've put on has been older plants that were already under construction.
Well, we talked about this briefly on the show. There is nuclear technology now that can be built in a factory.
Yes.
put in a container,
Yeah.
and shipped anywhere in the world.
And
And we're making these things, and we're shipping them to places like France. But there's only one, I think, projected to be used in the United States.
I haven't seen any projection of any
And I
of
think
these
there's
being
one
used.
in the works.
Well, they have, and the Army has talked about adopting these small modular reactors too. I have a big issue with these things, which is they aren't any safer than a safe nuclear plant, and the numbers on safety that come from the nuclear industry are all badly flawed. Same thing with they make projections of how long is it going to take to build a nuclear plant. If they make a projection, you'd better at least double it.
Yeah.
They
Well, that's
make
a
it-
conventional nuclear
Yeah,
plant.
but it's also these
I'm
things.
talking about things like fluidized bed reactors, which,
Yep.
as
They-
I said, they can be built into a container
Yeah.
and shipped, and they can't run away.
But you mean they can't melt down?
They can't melt down.
When I was a kid, not a kid, I was in my early 20s. That's a kid when you're
That's a
72.
kid. We'll let you have that.
I had a couple of friends who were nuclear engineers.
Yeah.
And I remember one of them saying to me, because I asked, what about the China syndrome? This is before the movie. And the guy said, you'll never see it. He said, nuclear plants, there's only a 1 in 10,000 chance that a nuclear plant is going to melt down. And
It had already happened then, hadn't it?
The other engineer
Fermi?
said, it's already happened.
Okay.
And the first engineer said, what are you talking about? And the second one said it happened at Fermi,
Yeah.
just outside of Detroit. And the first one was obviously kind of taken aback, and he said, well, you'll never see it happen again. And the other one said, well, the Fermi wasn't the first. And, I mean, just apart from military reactors, apart from experimental reactors, there was the sodium reactor experiment, which was experimental, but it was actually putting energy on the grid. So I think you can count it as a commercial reactor. That melted down. That was in Simi Valley, California, just outside of Los Angeles. These two guys were talking before 3 Mile Island. And then if you look at, so that's 3 in the United States, but there were 3 at Fukushima in Japan, and there was Chernobyl. We know about that. There was one Chapel Cross in Scotland. There was Yoslevska Bohunice in Czechoslovakia. 2 at Saint Laurent in France on different occasions.
I don't remember ever hearing about these.
It goes on and on. And these are just the ones we know about. There's one at Greifswald, but we don't know whether there was actually a nuclear meltdown there. And if you look at the statistics that were prepared by the nuclear industry, we should not have had more than 1.
Yeah.
So why did this happen? It's very simple. In every single case, it happened because of human failure. And their calculations specifically exclude human failure because it's unpredictable. So what do you do with small nuclear reactors where they say it can't melt down? Well, all of a sudden you've got to say, really? It can't? Can't? Really? Because somebody, this was not designed by computers, and if it was, you could have human error in the computers.
So
I don't trust them.
basically, this is bogus information.
Well, I don't know about bogus information, but it's cheaper to buy solar even than the things that you were talking
Well,
about.
solar's getting cheaper. Wind is getting cheaper.
Batteries
and you
are
don't
getting
have-
cheaper.
Batteries are getting better, as we'll talk.
Yep.
And you don't have to worry about
Meltdowns.
meltdown.
What happens when there's a spill of solar power?
That's called a good day, isn't it?
Okay.
Well, interesting takeaway from this article.
Yeah.
The article is kind of biased, I guess. One of the prime advocates of nuclear provided a list of wind energy-related fatalities.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, which included tiny wind generation, people's own little windmills, suicides,
Yes.
and airplanes crashing into nearby wires.
Yeah.
Nearby wire, not they didn't crash into the turbine, they crashed into the wires.
Well, yeah.
So, this is pretty dishonest.
I think it was Michael Barnard who wrote that article, and he is a pretty smart guy. He knows a lot of what he's talking about. He writes for Forbes and, I think the Wall Street Journal and stuff like that. Anyway,
Let's move along. We got another picture coming.
we have a picture of turbines at Block Island and another article from Clean Technica.
That's all of them, isn't it?
No, there's 2 more.
That's Block Island. That's 5 at Block.
There's 5 at Block
Okay,
Island.
so
yeah.
that's 3 of them.
That's 3 of them.
Renewable energy projects power New England away from fossil fuel dependence.
New England is taking a lead in renewable energy with a little help from the latest elections. With shared power resources and relationships that depend on interconnected infrastructures, the New England states are poised to move on carbon emissions.
Well, Block Island, in case you don't know, is the first U.S. offshore wind farm.
And still the only one.
And still the only one, but it's, how would you say it? I can't
It's going to lose that title.
There's things to come. And there's things in the works right now.
Which are much, much bigger. Block Island has 5 turbines. They're 6 megawatts each. Those are big turbines compared to on land, but bigger turbines are being put up offshore.
They're almost up to 10 now.
I think they are up to 10.
Well, they're talking about taking orders for 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
Well, let's see what I got here. Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative.
Yes?
The nation's first multi-state cap and invest program covering power plants is celebrating its 10th anniversary.
Yep. And the reintroduction of New Jersey into it.
Yep. Maine's new Democratic governor, Janet Mills, is putting panels on the governor's residence.
Yep.
Well, Jimmy Carter put panels on the White House, and Ronald Reagan took them down
but
again.
in the case of Jimmy Carter's panels, they were not particularly efficient.
Well, it was
And
way back when.
Yeah, it was indeed. And these panels on the Capitol building in Maine, if anybody was going to take them off, they'd have to justify it, and it would not be easy.
Oh yeah.
You know, those things are going to be producing a lot of value for the state, reducing costs for the electric bills.
We're going to touch base on this again before the show's over. We got more we want to talk about.
Okay, we are up to Friday.
Well, there's one thing I wanted to take.
Okay, go ahead.
The outfit that's working on these on these wind towers in the east is Ørsted.
Yes.
And we'll be talking about them a little bit later.
We will
They're a
indeed.
global leader in offshore wind.
Yes.
They used to be called DONG.
That's right.
Danish oil and natural gas.
No oil, no natural gas anymore.
So they decided to name themselves Ørsted.
They've abandoned fossil fuels and gone heavy into
and
offshore
they have
wind
entered into a 50-50 partnership with key offshore wind assets in the Northeast.
Right.
Off Massachusetts and Rhode Island, which we've talked about here.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to
We're moving
February.
on. February
22nd. This is Friday's news, and our first item is from Renewable Energy magazine.
The IEC report states science doesn't support turbine sound health claims. Now that's interesting.
Yep. As the number of wind turbines continue to grow across Iowa, researchers find little scientific evidence to support claims of health problems caused by wind turbines, according to a report from the Iowa Environmental Council.
Well, we've both visited
Searsburg.
turbines right here in Searsburg.
Yep.
And there's noise there.
Yeah.
It's just rather low. Well, I don't know what it's like in a windstorm, but the day we were there, it was a wish, wish, wish. It was kind of gentle. The cars going by on the highway, which are a quarter mile away,
Were louder.
just the tires running on the road were louder.
Yeah.
5 miles away, there's a steep hill.
You could hear the trucks.
And the trucks going down that steep hill with the Jake brakes were 5 times, 10 times as loud as the turbine.
Yeah, I lived on a mountaintop at one time. I could hear tractor trailers 6 miles away.
Yeah.
Just the tire on a level ground, and I could hear diesel locomotives that were 10 miles away. But the sound from the wind turbine, a lot of people in this country live in wind farms, and they like it.
Well, it's scary. They're trying to scare people about the noise.
Yeah.
And the noise is, for the most part, gentle.
Yes.
And of course, if you're going to believe that the noise is going to bother you, it's going to bother you. If you believe you're going to get sick.
Yeah.
What do they call that? That's a nocebo.
It's actually it's a placebo, but it's kind of a reverse placebo.
That's a
called,
nocebo.
Called a nocebo.
Yeah.
Should we move on?
We got one coming on here. We got another picture coming up.
We do indeed, and this is an APS
That's a battery storage setup.
which is pretty boring. You know, if I lived across the street from that, I'd say to my friends, I live in a boring neighborhood. But anyway, here is an item from Green Tech Media.
Arizona Public Service, the state's largest investor-owned utility, to add nearly a gigawatt of new battery storage and solar resources by 2025. They're not playing around.
No, they're not. Arizona Public Service, the state's largest investor-owned utility, announced that it will add 850 megawatts of battery storage.
That's significant.
It is, and at least 100 megawatts of solar generation by 2025. That amounts to nearly 1 gigawatt of new clean energy capacity.
Well, from the article, they're calling it solar after sunset.
Yes.
And they use batteries to save the solar.
Yeah.
Now let's move a little closer to New England here.
This is from WBUR.
I think that's a state radio station.
I think it is, yeah.
Maine Governor Mills and 2 environmental groups back a controversial billion-dollar transmission project.
Maine Governor Janet Mills and 2 environmental groups are signing on to a Central Maine Power's bid to build the New England Clean Energy Connect, a controversial new transmission line through the state's western forests. There are environmental groups that oppose this as well.
There are a few. Now, I looked it up on a map.
Yeah.
And this is the northwestern part of Maine.
Right.
And it's all swamp. There's nothing, nobody living up there.
Yeah. Well, that's true of a lot of Maine, that there's nobody living up there. But this thing, you know, disturbing a swamp is really difficult to justify. You've got to have a reason to do that. Swamps are very, very useful environmentally. But in this case, you know, the governor wants it. There are environmental groups that want it, and it's going to be bringing hydropower down from Quebec. Is that correct?
Yeah. Now Quebec wants to boost their hydropower, and
Right.
They want to sell it.
They want to boost their income.
They want to boost their income. So
Right.
it's part of a bigger scheme. As a matter of fact, there's about 4 different schemes now trying to get Canadian hydropower down into New England.
Right. Okay, we're up to Saturday, February 23rd. We've got an item from Tampa Bay Times.
And we got a picture.
We do. Let me put it on. There it is. It's already up. You don't have to do anything,
Yeah.
Tom.
Now those are artificial islands built in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And if we have 4 inches, 2.5 inches, those things are going to be all underwater. When you look at them, they're not islands. They look like islands, but they're what are they? Highest point 10 feet above sea level?
I don't think it's even
I don't
that.
think they're even that much.
Yeah.
Climate change is here. Will Tampa Bay finally get ready?
A group of officials is working to figure out how the 3.1 million people who live in the coastal plain, that is the Tampa Bay area, should grapple with a global crisis. It may be the first time local governments have come together in a meaningful way to plan for climate change. They've been putting this off. Why have they been putting it off?
They didn't want to face up to it.
They didn't want to face up to it. And there's a lot of people in this country who don't want to face up to it. And when the time comes that they have to face up to it because they open their door and step into a swamp, you know, they're going to have to face up to it.
Yeah.
Those homes there, and you can see them, they're cheek by jowl. They're expensive. Every single one of them has a dock, it looks like.
Well, that was part of the plan, but yeah.
Yeah.
They got a dock that
What do you
they're
do?
all probably on 1 acre lots, and a house consumes 90% of that.
Well,
1
I
acre.
don't think they're 1 acre. I think they're probably those are the houses. Yeah.
The houses are big. The lots are small.
Yeah.
And you can see there's all sorts of boats in it tied up back there.
That's an expensive piece of property.
Oh, sure it
And
is.
you know, any one house, and those houses are, when the roads are all of a sudden in a situation where they flood every day, those houses, what is their value going to be? I would think that it would be next to nothing.
Well, I wouldn't imagine they have an easy time in getting flood insurance.
Well,
And you can't sell it without insurance, so.
yeah, you can't sell it without insurance. And if you make 2 insurance claims,
You're out
you're out.
forever.
Well, no, not forever. I think you may be able to get
Get
back in
back
after
in, huh?
10 years. But if global warming is putting you in a position of having to make claims, you're not going to get back in after that.
Well, I got a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
Tampa St. Pete is the second most vulnerable metropolitan area in the U.S. to the monetary consequences of climate change.
After Miami.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
It's all I have is the
But
second article.
there's a whole set of. I mean, New York City
Well,
is.
it's the monetary consequences, of course, are
Yeah.
the tourist trade. Now we talked about Annapolis last week,
Yes, indeed.
in exactly the same.
And you know, it never occurred to me that Annapolis, and I should have thought about it. If you'd said Annapolis, I would have said,
Yeah.
no, wait a minute, they're on Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, there they are. Well, forecasts project that a 2-foot rise will leave parts of the town underwater by 2100. Now, a 2-foot rise is high on the high end, really.
I don't think so.
Well, it's on the high end of what people are saying.
It is, but
Leaders will have to shore up the region's drinking water to protect it from.
there's
creeping
so many
saltwater.
complications that come out.
There's a
of
lot going on.
this. Yeah.
Here.
Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, let's go on. This is the Green New Deal again.
This is the Green New Deal. We've got an item from CNBC.
Why switching to a Green New Deal may not make your electric bill spike.
And we'll have more about this.
Yes, we will.
It's a
And that's
nearly
what they're saying.
Yeah, it's a nearly religious point among climate change skeptics, not least of them President Donald Trump. If America moves quickly to reduce carbon emissions, electric bills will spike and businesses will suffer. But utilities are already doing it, showing it can work. And you know, I've seen articles over and over and over again projecting what the costs were for dealing with climate change, and I've seen articles over and over and over again that are projecting what the value is in dealing with pollution. And when you deal with climate change, you are dealing with pollution and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it looks to me like we can save money by dealing with climate change. In other words,
Well, that makes sense.
the cost of the Green New Deal might actually be negative. We might save money and make more money. If everybody who wants a job is employed, we would have a far lower pressure on our prison system, among other things. And that's part of the Green New Deal. But
Well, the biggest problem with the Green New Deal is nobody understands what it is.
yeah, I've
It's
been looking
more
into
than
that.
just energy.
Yeah,
It's
it's
jobs,
it's jobs,
it's economics.
it's economics.
It's a pretty well thought out thing from what I can see.
It's very broad, very broad. It has guaranteed health care. Since I was a teenager, I've been seeing articles that appearing in pretty competent, not left-wing journals saying, why aren't we dealing with the fact that it's cheaper to deal with health issues before they become big, and the hospitals are required by law in most places to admit people or to deal with people who show up at the emergency room, which means that a lot
For
of
some people, that's their only doctor.
that's the point.
Yeah.
If it's their only doctor, then it means that that we, as a society, are supporting very expensive health care because
Yep.
we're not dealing with minor issues.
Yep, absolutely.
So, you know, there you go. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a
I'm thinking I want to talk about Cuba's medical system, which works very well, but
yeah.
I'm going to skip
well,
that.
we could invite Michael. What's his name? The director who did those movies, Fahrenheit 9/11 and all that stuff. Michael Moore.
Michael Moore. Yeah.
Maybe he'd like to be a guest here on this show. He could talk about it. You could.
Interesting
chat with him. I have a feeling he would not show up.
Well, we got a picture coming up again.
We do, and I've put it up.
This is the Home Sea turbine.
Yep, and this is from Green Tech Media.
That's Ørsted again.
It's Ørsted again.
Ørsted's Hornsea project spawns talk of offshore wind replacing nuclear. Duh.
Really?
And this Hornsea turbine project, there's actually two projects,
Yeah.
both very large.
Very large. Danish developer Ørsted said its Hornsea 1 plant, a 1.2 gigawatt installation that started delivering power to the grid this month.
Now that's pretty big.
It's
for
pretty
wind.
big. Could help make up for a lack of planned nuclear generation in the UK, as plans for new reactors have fallen by the wayside. Well, the UK has had terrible problems with nuclear reactors. They've had to guarantee wholesale prices for the nuclear reactors that are above the price of retail electricity. So, you know.
Well, Hornsea 1 is operating already.
Yeah.
Hornsea 2 is being built as we speak.
Yeah.
This is huge. It's going to cover more than 157 square miles.
Yeah.
Which is bigger than 12 by 12.
Yep. What this means.
Bigger than the city of Denver.
These offshore wind farms have capacity factors that are upwards of 0.5. And nuclear has a capacity factor. In the United States, it's about 0.9, 0.91.
They're talking about 60% for Hornsea.
Yeah, this is...
nuclear, the U.S. nuclear power plant capacity as a whole is 82%. It's not 100%.
It's not 100%.
82.
And it's lower everywhere else.
Oh, it's way low in England. It's like 42% or something.
Yeah, it's you know, the nuclear power is we're getting to a point where nuclear power has historically been very, very cheap once the reactor was paid down. Very expensive to build, which means keeping the old reactors going, you can make money on them.
Makes money on them, right.
But we're getting to a point where that isn't true anymore because the price of electricity from wind power has fallen below the price of electricity from nuclear power. And guess what? The wind never stops blowing. You get
Somewhere.
this, you get this thing where people say, well, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. I got news for you. The wind always blows. If it isn't blowing here, it's going to blow over there.
Okay.
And all you need is some transmission lines, and that's why people can guarantee power from wind turbines, because they're not actually giving the power from the wind turbines that they've contracted, because in the contract it says or from someplace else. And so if they don't get the wind power from Iowa, they can get it from Michigan.
Okay. Okay.
And we've got transmission lines, and we're going to have more transmission lines, I think. Anyway, we are up to Sunday, February 24th, and we have an item here from Clean Technica.
Electric cars are about to absolutely demolish gas mobiles. Well, that's a true statement.
I think it is. As the technologies of EVs and batteries march on, as costs, energy density, and range improve, we're getting closer to a technological crossover point. It is a point where you have to be a truly odd case to choose a gasoline or diesel car over an electric one.
Well, what the article says, at some point these cars will have as much range as any sane human can want, and also a lower total cost of ownership compared to gas cars. Well, and right now they cost more to build, but they cost a lot less to operate.
Yeah. Do you remember the 1959 Chevrolet? It had fins, and looking at it from behind, they went oop like this. It was almost like a gull wing.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time,
they were taken off, weren't they?
Yeah. I asked somebody about what car he would buy. I was only 13 years old. The guy said to me, "Well, I wouldn't buy a 1959 Chevy," and I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because 2 years from now, who is going to want that?"
He's got a good point there.
And we've seen this kind of thing over and over again, and of course we saw the what was Edsel? We saw the Edsel kind of come and go. But
we both rode to Keene last week in an electric car.
Yeah.
And ordinary driving on the electric car, you wouldn't know it was an electric car.
Yeah.
But when it came time to pass, all of a sudden
you knew that there was something going on there.
That car really accelerated.
It goes off like a rocket. And but the big thing is, 5 years from now, when people go out to buy a car, they're going to have to think ahead and think, is there really going to be a gas station in my town in 5 years?
Well, I don't know if it's this article or another one that we're coming to later. I don't know. But they're talking about curves.
Yeah.
And there's one curve that basically says when there's new technology coming, people hold off selling their old car till they wait for the new technology.
Yeah.
And it's happening already.
Yes, that's right. And actually also, the three biggest car markets, Europe, the United States, and China, car sales are on the decline, or at best kind of holding steady in all three.
You mean regular car sales?
All car sales
All
combined.
car sales.
But the battery-driven car sales are increasing at an amazing rate. I'm talking about 60% per year. And the car manufacturers undoubtedly are looking at this and saying, this market is changing and we have to be prepared to be ahead of this curve.
Well,
So-
VW's on track. They're talking about going 100%. What?
Yeah.
2025?
I don't know. I don't remember.
You know, they're talking about.
I know we talked
They're
about
talking
that. I
about
don't
dropping.
remember dropping
fossil
internal
fuel
combustion
cars.
machines, yes. And I think 2025 would be a smart time to do it, because in 2025, people are going to be asking, where am I going to be getting gasoline for this thing?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think it's a pretty good bet that you could get gasoline after the local gas stations close by going to the local airport where there's small propeller-driven planes.
Yeah.
But what's the closest airport to Keene? I mean, to Brattleboro.
Keene.
Keene.
So you'd have small airport.
Yeah, and it's a small airport. You'd have to drive a long ways just to get there. So, you know. Anyway, our next item is from PV Magazine
Well, we got a picture
Australia.
coming up here.
And this is a picture of Ninh Thuan province.
Something like that.
Something like that in Vietnam. I should learn Vietnamese. I have one of my sons married a Vietnamese woman. She's very
Oh, is that
sweet.
so?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting. It's a pretty spot.
yeah. They go to
And
Vietnam every year.
We'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Southeast Energy solar energy cubed.
Yep. Vietnam had no renewable projects at all in 2016. That year, it saw coal, once an export commodity, begin to be imported. It shifted significant future capacity from coal to solar, and it now has a pipeline of 40 solar projects with a combined capacity of 2.5 gigawatts at various stages of development.
That's significant.
It is. It's very significant, and that doesn't even address the wind power they're putting in.
Well, I'm going to put the picture up again briefly.
Yeah.
In this province, it has one of the best solar potentials in the country.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why they're looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay? Vietnam is bursting with solar largely to do the revision of the country's power development plan in 2016.
Yep.
Which shifted significant future capacity from coal to solar.
Right.
They saw what was coming, and they said, holy cow, we're going to stop this coal nonsense.
Yes.
And we're going to move to where
Yeah, and of course
Where
in
it's at.
in Vietnam, which is a what is it called? A command economy, and they're market driven. They're doing this because it's the cheapest way to do things.
Yep, it is a command economy. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item is from Clean Technica, and it's about our friend.
I'm going to bring this guy up again. There he is.
Oh, I'm not the friend.
With a Sanders candidacy, clean energy technology is central to policy discussions.
Just 24 hours after announcing his presidential bid, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders raised $6 million from more than 225,000 donors. Part of his allure is his vision of achieving clean energy while saving money for our families.
Well, he has sponsored, partly at least 4 significant bills.
Right.
Residential Energy Savings Act is one of them.
Yep.
Low Income Solar Act is another one.
Yep.
Green Jobs Act is another one. The Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. And he's also helped form a public-private partnership called Efficiency Vermont.
Yes.
Which we probably
extremely
all
successful.
utilize because
Yeah.
you can buy LED bulbs
Yeah, absolutely.
from a local hardware store that's subsidized by Energy
Yeah.
Efficiency Vermont.
Yep. And, you know, I keep coming back to this. Bernie Sanders, I had a friend who was a staunch conservative. He died, which is why I put it in the past tense. But he used to talk about the good Roosevelt, who, of course, was Theodore Roosevelt. And he admired Theodore Roosevelt very much.
He'd be looked at as a leftist today.
Bernie Sanders' last presidential platform was almost identical to the presidential
I can believe
platform of
that.
Theodore Roosevelt
I
from
can believe that.
1912. And the Republicans who are in office today have so far abandoned the traditional conservative. I'm surprised that any conservative would support them. You know, I can support Bernie Sanders. I think he's a good example of an American conservative politician. And if you call him a socialist, I'll say, well, you know, Benjamin Franklin said we should have a postal system that was run by the government, and
Amazing.
that's socialism by the definition. Our our founding fathers were all a bunch of socialists by the definition of the far right. I mean, let's be real here.
Well, let's face it, the far right wants total private control of everything and
Yeah,
no restrictions.
So the biggest shark in the pool will be the animal that
Devours everybody else.
devours everybody else, which of course is the fossil fuels industry and the people who support them. Let's get out of this.
Yeah, we got a picture
We're up to
coming here.
Monday, February 25th, and we have a picture, and I
Let's
want to
take a look
talk
at
about this
because
picture.
it's an interesting picture.
It is. Okay, what you got for a title? This is from
Under
Forbes.
Trump's tariffs, the U.S. lost 20,000 solar energy jobs.
This is from Forbes, but I will tell you, I think Forbes was way off the mark on this. A report from the DOE in 2016 showed that solar energy was responsible for a much larger share of employment in the power sector, 43%, than the whole fossil fuel industry combined at 22%. It has declined since because of Trump's trade tariffs. Now, I want
You got something to talk about this.
Yeah,
curve.
absolutely. Leave the
I'll
picture
put it back up.
I want to point out that the curve between 2010 and 2016 goes up at an increasingly speedy rate. And I actually did a little bit of analysis on these numbers, and I found out that curve is not exponential. It is compound exponential.
So it's exponentially exponential.
That's right. The rate of increase increases every year. It starts from 93,500 to 100,240. That's an increase.
So it's not the increase. The increase is increasing.
Yes, that is an increase of 7 or 8%. Between 2015 and 2016, we went from 208,900 to 260,000, and that's an increase of about 24%. Now, here's the trick. That means that the increase is increasing. But if we just extrapolate at that flat rate, which seems like it might be a safe thing to try to do, we wouldn't have 260,000 jobs in 2018. We'd have 400,000 jobs in 2018. And so I don't think Donald Trump's tariffs lost us 20,000 jobs. I think they lost us more like 160,000 jobs.
Well, it kind of really slowed down the growth of solar in the U.S.
He said he was saving American jobs in 2 factories that were owned by foreign countries.
Yeah.
And what did he do? He put in these tariffs, which meant that new solar installations had a very much increased price, which made them less attractive.
They just dropped.
They just dropped.
Them, yep.
Honestly, I think that was exactly what was intended.
You think so, huh?
Not necessarily by Donald Trump, but what we have in Donald Trump is a self-proclaimed genius who lets everybody else do his thinking for him.
Oh, he's the smartest guy in the world. Just ask him.
Well, what can I say? Okay, let's get on.
Yeah, let's move along.
Our
here.
next item is from the New Jersey
Coming a little
Herald.
closer to home.
We need a new picture on the screen. What do you want to read about that?
I'll bring up a new picture.
Speaker DeLeo. He chooses the worst possible picture.
Speaker DeLeo proposes $1 billion for energy efficiency grants. Now, this guy is the Massachusetts Speaker of the House.
Right. Massachusetts House Speaker Robert DeLeo unveiled a plan to spend $1 billion over the next 10 years to help cities and towns adopt new technology designed to cut greenhouse gas emissions, strengthen infrastructure projects, and reduce costs for municipalities.
Well, he's got some good stuff there.
Yeah.
Funding for renewable energy, energy efficiency, climate change resiliency. All of these are good things.
Yep.
The competitive grants would be available for municipalities to pay for these projects.
Yep.
Okay, so he's giving money to the towns.
Yep.
And the towns are hopefully spending it.
Yep.
And the funding will come from the sale of bonds.
Of bonds.
Yep.
Which are going to
So
be...
it's not going to be taxpayer thing.
Well, ultimately, it's going to be somebody coming up. It could be funded. The bonds payoff could be funded from savings. I don't know. But
I didn't delve into it that day.
Yeah.
There's an interesting, how would you say, sequel to this.
Yeah.
Another piece of legislation would require that all large-scale fleets of vehicles in Massachusetts, public and private, to go electric by 2035.
I think that's so unrealistic.
It's going to happen before that.
It's going to happen before that. Yeah.
The market is going to make it happen.
That was from the New Jersey Herald, and now we've got an item from Clean Technica.
Clean Technica again.
Yes, this is the Osborne effect.
This was the one I was referring
Yes,
to.
it is.
The Osborne effect on the auto industry.
A perfect storm is brewing above the automotive industry as three hardly grasped phenomena are working together. They are the Osborne effect of delayed demand, the downward curve of technology costs, and an S-curve that describes market acceptance of new technologies.
Well, I had to find out for myself what the Osborne effect
Well,
was.
I knew because, I was in the computer industry.
You know these things.
Yeah, Osborne had a portable computer that, had a screen that was about that big.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it weighed like 26 pounds, and it looked like a suitcase. But you could, if you had really good vision or maybe magnifying glasses, you could use that screen. I knew people with Osborne's, but Osborne said, you should see my next computer.
Yeah.
And he described the next computer that was going to come out that had a screen about that big. And
nobody
the moment he said that, his sales dropped to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's just what it says here.
Yeah.
It's a social phenomenon of customers canceling or deferring orders for the current, soon-to-be obsolete product as an unexpected drawback of a company's announcing a future product prematurely. That's exactly what you just said.
Yeah, except in this case, it's not a premature announcement because these electric vehicles are already out there.
They're coming. They're here.
The second thing here is the downward curve of technology costs, which is Wright's law. I've talked about that before.
The price erosion of a product caused by continuing technological improvements.
Yeah, it's called
batteries, for example.
A learning curve. It's a technological learning curve. It's
solar.
Very
it's
predictable.
Happening right now.
Yeah, happening right now. It's very predictable, and we've got literally scores of examples of how this works, and it does work.
And this S-curve is interesting. It shows a slow start that new technologies have.
Yep. Yep.
Go like that.
Well,
yeah.
Like that.
Okay.
And then it goes up, and then it goes kind of flattened out.
With the very first, the technologies have a slow start.
Yep.
And the way this thing says, with the first early adopters getting to the tech before the mass market can name it.
Yeah.
Then it's then gaining market share up to an inflection point. It's going this way. Okay, and then at the top it's flattening out again.
Yeah.
So what you got is a tall, thin letter S.
Although I don't think it's going to flatten out in the sales of electric vehicles versus gas-powered vehicles. I think that gas-powered vehicle sales are simply going to stop altogether, because maintaining those vehicles when you don't have gas stations is not going to be easy.
Well, the top part of the S-curve is going to be determined by the fact that everybody's going to have one.
Yeah.
The market will dry up because they bought one already.
Yep. We got to move on, Tom. We've got an item from Clean
let's
Technica.
see. We got 16 minutes left.
Yes.
And we're on Tuesday.
Yeah, we've got 6 items in 16
we
minutes.
can do that.
Yeah, we can. So it's Tuesday, February 26th, an item from Clean Technica.
Oh, this is an interesting article.
It is indeed.
Listen to the children. Political miscalculations pile up over the Green New Deal. A very interesting event.
Yep.
Really.
This week across the United States, young people are visiting their senators to plead for the Green New Deal. And by the way, both senators in Vermont back it.
Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of what you would expect. Senator Leahy did a speech yesterday in which he was talking about the Green New Deal and how we need it. This week across the United States, young people are visiting their senators. I read that. They tell personal stories about why the Green New Deal holds hope for their future, for a system of energy that is renewable, not rigged by by fossil fuel billionaires. And, they got after Dianne Feinstein in a way that was really, it went viral.
It went viral, and Diane's not very happy. I mean,
No.
She really blew it.
Well, they're not very happy
She really
with her.
blew it. I mean,
She's not the only one either. There are people who back it, but only kind of, sort of, like Nancy Pelosi. We need something, but we're not all together.
Diane was in that same boat. She says, I got a better one.
Oh, well, let's see it, Diane. The thing about the Green New Deal is it doesn't have any money allocation. It doesn't have any specifics about how we're going to achieve the goals. It just tells what the goals are. So it says, here are the goals. Let's try to do that. And the goals, it's going to be green energy within 10 years. In other words, no fossil fuels within 10 years. A second goal is health care for all. We've been talking about that for years.
Yep.
And the third thing is jobs for everybody. And honestly, I think if we have a 10-year time frame on that, at the end of 10 years, we're going to discover that we are more prosperous as a nation than we are today.
Well, that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
And, it sounds logical to me.
Yep. Okay. Should we move on?
Yeah, we got
Okay.
another picture coming up.
We have a picture
Anybody know this guy? There he is.
There he is.
There he is.
I told one of his aides, I yelled at your boss once. Oh, no, why did you do that? I yelled, thank you, Bernie.
I had an argument with Patrick Leahy's wife.
Oh, did you?
It wasn't really an argument. But
Yeah. This is from CNN.
Bernie Sanders says climate change is an existential crisis. And it is.
Yeah, I believe it is too. Democratic presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders said climate change is an existential crisis that will impact generations to come. He advocated for a complete overhaul of the U.S. energy system away from fossil fuels. He said that climate change is a human rights issue. And I got to tell you, Tom, you and I have talked about this. I voted Republican consistently for 40 years.
Yeah.
Look
ashamed.
I don't feel ashamed, but the thing is, I had friends who talked about a free market.
Yeah.
And they wanted the market to be totally unregulated.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, how in the world are you going to have a free market if there's no regulations on it? That's like saying we're going to have a free society without any laws. So
It is basically that.
I don't want somebody to murder me, and I don't want to be robbed. So we have laws in order to be free. And if we're careful, we can do exactly that. And the same thing is true of the market. And what's happened is the free market has been dominated by people who want to make money on it and are unwilling to go to new technology because it's not in their business plan. And the result of that is we have entered the 21st century in reverse.
Yeah, that's a
We're
good way of
going
looking at it.
backwards.
Going backwards.
We've got a president of the United States who called for returning to coal, which is like saying we want to go back to the 19th century.
Yeah. He's not getting very far with that one.
Well, he's not even talking about it anymore.
Yeah. Well, this is from CNN.
Yep.
And like all CNNs, there's usually a video attached.
Yep.
And there's about a 1-minute video of Sanders talking.
Yes.
It's worth looking at.
Yeah.
And the takeaway from his talk is, we'll bring a lie detector to the Trump debate.
Well,
And it's going to beep.
I don't think Donald Trump would be willing to be subjected to a lie detector test any more than he'd be willing to subject to an IQ test.
And again, Sanders has said, it is really a disgrace and an embarrassment that we have a president who rejects science.
Yes. Our next item is from Power Technology.
Okay. Let's, who are we going to get up here? I guess we'll leave who we got up here. Power Technology. Germany ditches fossil fuels and looks to renewable energy.
Germany, one of the largest consumers of coal, has decided to shut down all its coal-burning plants by 2038.
Now, that's a significant move.
It's a significant move, but I don't think it's fast enough. To make this a reality will require an investment of about $45 billion. I don't think that's true. Germany had earlier decided to shut down all its nuclear power plants by 2022, and it's on track with that. The fact is the coal-burning power plants have to be replaced anyway.
Well,
so why are we talking about an investment of $45 billion? It's not an investment of $45 billion.
well, some of them have to be, it's going to require some investment.
Yeah.
But some others are just wearing out and they're going to be taken down anyhow.
But it's not $45 billion as opposed to zero. It's $45 billion as opposed to something else.
Yeah.
And I would like to know what that something else is, because it might actually be $45 billion. And that's true of the United States, too. It may be cheaper for us to go to renewable power than just to replace the... And if we had a law that said can't build fossil fuel plants anymore, it would be really easy to address the problems that we have with climate change. It just means that every time a coal-burning or gas-burning plant shuts down,
you don't replace it.
You replace it with wind, solar, hydro, biodigesters, however you're going to do it. You got a lot of choices.
Well,
Okay.
this is interesting here because coal-fired plants currently account
Yep.
for 40% of Germany's electricity production.
Yep.
Just last year, renewables went to 41%.
Yeah, and in the United States, within 2 years, if and FERC doesn't tell you this because they've got figures that are not entirely correct, but I can show you. Within 2 years, generation by coal-burning plants in the United States will drop below 20%, and renewable generation will go above 20%.
They'll keep a couple of them going as museums.
I don't think so.
They
Anyway,
bring the school kids here. This is how we used to
Right.
generate electricity.
Right. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, February
got a picture here,
22nd. We have a
too.
picture of a wind farm in Michigan.
Let's see if I can't find that one. Here
I
it
think you
is.
should be able to.
GM, General Motors, partners with DTE Energy
Which is
for
Detroit.
Michigan Wind Energy, which is
Yeah.
Detroit Electric. Right?
Yeah. As part of its commitment to increasing its renewable energy footprint globally and finding clean energy solutions located near its operations, General Motors Company has entered into an agreement with DTE Energy for 300,000 megawatt hours of wind energy in the state of Michigan. This is from Wind Power Engineering.
I'm just trying to read my notes here. Well, 300,000 megawatt hours is equivalent to the amount of power consumed by 30,000 U.S. households per year.
Yeah.
Okay, so the wind energy that's part of this article is equal to 30,000 households.
Yep.
Enough wind energy to power 100% of General Motors power needs in Warren and Detroit, Michigan.
Right.
So they're
They're
getting on
moving.
top of this
They're
thing
moving
just
in, yeah.
basically to save money.
Yeah, they're moving on this. And yes, it's to save money. Or, well, they get other things too. They get bragging rights and so forth.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we are up to an article on from Clean Technica.
This is an interesting
This is an interesting article. They
Well,
had
you know I like batteries.
yeah, they had a picture, and I thought about putting the picture in, but you know, it wasn't much of a picture. It looked like a picture of two pieces of slate.
I've seen the picture. The picture doesn't tell you very much
No.
because externally, both of these cells look the same.
Yeah, and they're not very interesting. It's not like, you know.
it's very
Anyway,
very
what's
dull.
the title here?
24,000. Oh no, 24M.
24M.
That's the name of the company.
Yeah.
24M ships first high energy density semi-solid state batteries.
What the blazes is a
Well,
semi-solid
it's
state
a
battery?
Madison Avenue term.
Okay.
I don't think it has any real technical meaning.
The quest for better battery in electric vehicle applications took a step forward this week as 24M, an innovative company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, announced it has shipped the first semi-solid state lithium-ion batteries to commercial customers. Now,
Well, they've taken this cell design
yeah.
and they've just changed it internally a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
Now-
it's just better.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Do you have in your notes the density?
I do.
Okay. What
I
are the
do.
densities?
The energy density is more than 250 watt hours per kilogram.
All right.
And according to the official density of present cells, it's 207.
Okay. So what
So
we're
20%
getting,
more.
the current
The
cells.
new ones are 20% better than the old ones.
Okay. So
but
basically
apparently
what
the old
we're
ones
saying,
aren't as bad as they say they are.
yeah. But the point is, what this means is that if you have this, the batteries that weigh exactly the same amount,
Mm-hmm.
these new batteries are going to have a significantly greater amount of energy in them.
About 20%.
Yeah, which
It's
is
just
it
significant.
means that the range of your vehicle is increased
Absolutely.
by 20%.
Absolutely.
So if it was 200 miles, all of a sudden it's 240 miles.
Well, there's a federal program that's funding some of this.
Yep.
And the goal is to provide an energy density of 350 watt hours per kilogram
Yeah.
by the end of this year.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, you know, these federal goals, they had the
That's what they're shooting for.
yeah, they had a thing that we used to talk about. It was the Sunshot initiative.
The
from
what?
Sunshot, solar shot, something like that.
Okay.
And it was a couple of years ago we talked about this, and they had a goal of getting the cost of solar systems down below $1 a watt by 2020.
Okay.
Well, They achieved that
Way
goal
lower than
a
that.
long time
Yeah.
ago, you know. So these things do, you know, this is coming about.
Well, I'd say as far as solar, or as far as the government spending money, this is one of the better things they do.
Yep.
Okay, so we got a picture coming
We have a
up here.
picture, and somehow or another,
And I'll
There we
bring her
go.
up. There she is.
there she is. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator
The guy in the
Markey,
back is Ed Markey. Yep.
Ed Markey from Massachusetts. And this article came from CNN.
It's an interesting. I mentioned CNN has videos attached to it. And
Yes.
We saw one about Bernie.
Yep.
This one has a 17-minute video, and it's a good video. It's good
Yeah.
watching it. Green New Deal is feasible and affordable.
Now this is talking about a Columbia University professor named Jeffrey Sachs. I think was the guy who wrote it.
Okay.
And he's the head of a sustainability institute. He knows what he's talking about. You know, the Green New Deal combines ideas across several parts of the economy because the ultimate goal is sustainable development. That means an economy that delivers a package deal: good incomes, social fairness, and environmental sustainability. Fears that it is unachievable are wrong. Well, before a person jumps in and says, this is socialism, these people are in fairyland, which is basically the arguments that I'm seeing in the news. There's a lot of this stuff about that'll never work. Before people take that position, they should really look at the numbers, because the numbers are there. You know, the cost of renewable energy is below the cost of fossil fuels energy, and you can see that in 2-year-old Lazard Associates reports for the levelized cost of electricity. The cost of electric vehicles is right now dropping below the cost of gas-powered vehicles new, and they're much cheaper to maintain, the electric vehicles. So why would anybody buy a gas-powered vehicle?
Well, wiper blades get expensive after a while.
After a while you do have to, but you have to replace your wiper blades if you got a gas-powered vehicle.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I think you do.
Oh.
And this thing I've mentioned before, the thing about health, it's a whole lot cheaper for a society to fund dealing with.
You're not supposed to look at that.
You're not supposed to look at it. But as I said, if you look at the founding fathers of the United States, they were all, by these people's definitions, a bunch of socialists.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a conservative. I'm not impressed by their arguments against socialism. Their arguments against socialism would argue that, you know, the medieval people shouldn't have a commons.
Yeah.
Really. People should understand this.
And the army should be privatized.
The army should be privatized. The jails should be privatized. The police should be privatized.
Yep.
These are among the worst ideas I have ever heard of.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to imagine very hard what the effects of those things are. All you have to do is look at history with the Roman Empire and so forth, you know, getting into funding the soldiers by going to war. It means you got a lot of wars. And sooner or later, you start losing
Is that how
them.
that works?
Yeah, that's how it worked. That's how their empire expanded,
Yeah.
and it's how their empire collapsed.
Yeah.
They needed a better system, and they didn't find it. The same thing is true of jobs. You're far better off having everybody being offered a job that pays a living wage
That would be nice.
than you are saying, well, you know, if you can't find yourself a job, then you're going to be homeless, and the only way you can survive is by panhandling or stealing. Mm-hmm. Is that what you really want?
I would say there are some people who want exactly that.
It's not rational.
No.
All right. We have people talking about objectivism, but they're not objective. If you're going to deal with things objectively, you're going to have to deal with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Objectivism, I'll tell you about objectivism, and this is Ayn Rand and all that stuff. The relationship between objectivity and objectivism is, aside from language and a few other things, identical to the relationship between truth and pravda. I think it's time to...
The word pravda in Russian means truth.
Yeah, it's also
There's
the
big irony
propaganda.
of history.
I think it's
Big
time
area
for us
history.
to escape and let the people off the hook.
Well, I think so.
So we'll wave goodbye. Bye,
Adios, everybody. Have a good night.